The Atheist Debates Patreon project presents Why Young Earth Claims Are Appealing. The scientific consensus on the age of the universe is around 13.8 billion years, give or take. And that number may vary as our data improves. It's vanishingly unlikely, though, that the actual age of the Earth is anywhere near the 6,000 to 10,000 years that young Earthers would like to pretend that it is. So in the face of strong scientific information and a consensus, why does a young Earth belief persist? Well, let's do some math. I'm going to do the math. I'm not going to put it up on the screen for you. You can go do it yourself, and I'll explain what I'm doing to kind of take a look at the absurdity of this claim. The Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. That means that the Earth, according to science, has existed for about 32% of the history of the universe. It means the universe existed for about 9 billion years before there was an Earth. That's almost twice as much time from the totality of time without an Earth as with an Earth. But it's worse than that because humans haven't existed on Earth since the very beginning. We haven't existed on Earth for 4.5 billion years. In fact, humans have been around, modern anatomical humans, for about 300,000 years. We can dismiss earlier members of the genus Homo, as I doubt any young Earthers think that these are actually humans or that they actually existed as ancestors, etc. And so that means that the Earth went 4.2 billion years without modern humans. That's 0.00006% of Earth's history has included modern humans. But that's the last 300,000 years with modern humans anatomically. Truly modern humans, behaviorally, have been around for somewhere between 60 to 160,000 years. It's hard to make estimates. We don't know. We don't have time machines. So roughly 1/2 to 1/5 of the time that anatomically modern humans have been around, we've had modern humans. And then for only 13,000 years or so have we had agriculture and settlement and written language. Spoken languages are much older, but written languages for about 5,500 years or so. The book of Genesis, at best dating to about 1400 BCE. Now, Genesis is the Bible's book covering the origin of the universe and life, and yet it's only existed for 0.0000002%, or 2 millionths of a percent of the age of the universe. Now, that's, if you look at the young Earth thing, Genesis was written has existed for 34 to 50% of the time for the young Earthers. Because if you think that the book is, 1400 BC, so you're looking at like 3,800 years or so, or 3,600 years, and you think the Earth is 6,000 to 10,000 years, then Genesis existed for somewhere between half and a third of how long the young Earthers think that the Earth has existed. And yet it is a vanishingly small percentage of the actual time that a universe existed. Briefly, for completeness, I want to take a look at space, the space that we live in, the outer space, everything. In the Milky Way galaxy, it's estimated there are about 100 billion stars. And that's on the low end, and we don't know for sure what the number is or how consistent it is across other galaxies. But we'll just go with 100 billion so we're not exaggerating. If only 1% of those stars, of the stars in the Milky Way, have planets, that's still 1 billion stars with planets. And if 10% of those stars are in the habitable zone for planets, and the estimates range from 14 to 30%, so I went even lower than the lowest estimates, that's still 100 million potentially habitable planets. And that's in the Milky Way galaxy alone. There's estimated to be 100 billion galaxies, possibly hundreds of billions of galaxies, and some estimates have gone as high as 2 trillion though there may be errors with that. So I erred way on the side of caution and just said 100 billion galaxies. Out of the potentially human habitable planets that would exist across all of those galaxies, the Earth is one. And in the view of young earthers and many, many different camps of evangelical fundamentalist Christians, it's the only one, which means the Earth is 1 in 10 quintillion. If we take a look at all the potential habitable planets across the universe, the Earth represents 1 in 10 quintillion. So the scientific consensus and the best data show us as insignificant, both spatially and temporally. If your religion has humans as the special creation of a God, the focus of all existence, the purpose for creating anything in the first place, it's really hard to explain this in an old universe where we're statistically insignificant. 0.02% of the age of the universe is how long the book of Genesis has existed, which is supposed to tell us about the origin of the universe, although it tells a fancy story at the beginning and then includes a bunch of other stuff about humanity. But it's also hard to explain this in a world that's huge, right? We're even more insignificant in space than we are in time. 1 in 10 quintillion. That's 19 zeros for people outside the US, because I understand, like in Britain, I think quintillion's like 30 zeros. So different mechanisms there, but 1 followed by 19 zeros. That's how insignificant the Earth, the entirety of the Earth is. I didn't even go into the fact that we only occupy a portion of the Earth, thankfully. And so it's easily dismissed by just viewing everything outside the Earth with a really arrogant lens and talking about the rest of space or outer space. Even the parts we can't see, according to some, the way I was raised, if I were to put my Jesus back on, the other planets, the other stars, the other galaxies, they exist to give us something to look at. They exist so that we can admire the vast power of God. He's like Tim the Enchanter from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where he's just got so much power that it's popping out here and here and here, and he just keeps making galaxies. And there's another galaxy, and there's billions of galaxies with billions of planets, and it's mostly for us to look at, but sometimes it's for signs and messages. It's beyond ridiculous to claim that all of the science is wrong about human origins and think it's wrong about the age of the universe, which is why Catholics are okay with some version of evolution after being embarrassingly and violently wrong about whether or not the Earth was in fact the center of the universe or even the center of our solar system. It's beyond ridiculous to claim that there's a conspiracy among scientists to hide the truth about the young Earth. When people talk about science and scientists, they make the same mistake that is made when they speak about the government. Like, it's us versus the government. It's us versus the scientists. Despite the fact that both science and government are participatory systems that include theists, sometimes even a majority theists. So you have all of these people who are God believers in positions in the government, evidently involved in a conspiracy to promote science, which includes a lot of theists as well, that we need to hide the reality of science that shows it's a real 10,000 years instead of the lies that say 4.5 billion years. But even without the conspiracy thinking, it's just much easier to think that you're the special creation of a God if you dismiss all of the facts that suggest otherwise. And that's what makes the young Earth appealing. If you begin by thinking we're the special creation of a God, then everything else that makes us look insignificant has to be dealt with. And that's why the young Earth comes into play. There are other reasons too. There's an arrogant view that being a special creation, the smug view that you'll be persecuted for your beliefs, so they must in fact be right. Like, if you hold right beliefs, people will persecute you, which means anytime you're being persecuted, you must be right, which encourages you to keep on being, air quotes, right. There's the fearful view that you are in spiritual warfare with the enemy, and the enemy has planted false information to keep you from trusting God, so that anything that comes up that does not conform to your very narrow-minded understanding of the significance of human beings gets to get thrown out. It's easier to just deny the science than it can ever be to prove the science is wrong. That's just common sense. The question nobody seems to ask is, why won't their God help them prove that the science is wrong? I think I know why.